In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you the third aspect, actually the environmental and the social reasons why you are still struggling with your binge eating. So stay tuned. Welcome to Stop Binging and Start Living. And from the title, this is exactly what I'm going to be helping you through this series in this podcast, through nourishment, movement, and mindset. Because when you understand where these habits are coming from and how to actually create a change, a positive change for the long term, you can start living your life today by creating a life free from binge eating. So I am so excited to have you here, and let's dive into today's episode. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing the thing that very often people don't really talk about in this way. So make sure that you listen to the other episodes, of course, after you listen to this one, because we covered the two first big reasons why we're struggling. You're probably struggling with binge eating. So we talked about the biology, physiology. We talked about emotional, which is the psychology. And today we are talking about the social environmental reasons. Because when we're struggling with binge eating, here is the thing. Food is not something like we can kind of deal with like alcohol or drugs or gambling. We are surrounded with food in every single social event and environmental surrounding. So this is why talking about this topic today is going to actually shed some clarity of why maybe what you've been trying in the past hasn't worked. And it's not because you're lacking motivation. It's not because you don't have the willpower. It's not because you're stuck with this binge eating struggle. It's because very often we don't talk about this, and it can be sometimes hard to hear, but having that clarity is going to create kind of a big shift. It actually created a big shift for me and a lot of my clients. And I really want you to take away this amazing information. So if this is the first time you're tuning in, my name is Dina Merhbi. I am a dietitian, NLP practitioner, and as well a yoga and mindfulness coach. And my aim is to share with you my personal experience and my journey, but as well what I've been helping for the past 20 years through science-based, psychology-based tips and tricks and resources and information to help you create the breakthrough, to actually break free from binge eating like my clients have been creating for the past 20 years. And when I talk about today's topic that I'm going to be sharing with you today, you're going to see it's kind of, there's a bit of a sensitive area there, and it's okay. We're actually here, I'm here to really be transparent and to share everything. But the more we understand there's a bit of certain things that maybe we don't want to talk about, then this is where we need to make sure we have the right support for it. But I'm going to give you a bit of a nice general way that we're going to dive into deeper, little by little sections, because this can be hours every episode, but I want them to be always like quick tips, a little bit of enlightenment, having that little thought of saying, oh, I never saw it that way. And this is what I'm going to share with you today. So let's talk about social and environmental things. Let's take an example of, for example, dieting, right? Whenever you go on to plan, I've done more diets than I can count, and so many people have followed dieting. So when we're going into a diet, we kind of get into a plan, right? We get into a zone. We seclude our social environments. We just like focus on that plan. We cut out all those foods from the house. We really kind of get ourselves into this like personal cave of health change. And we kind of create certain changes. But again, like I mentioned in other episodes, when the more that you're dieting, the more you're actually going to be opening that door to binge eating. And do stay tuned in the future episodes. I'm actually going to be sharing with you the main things in terms of food that you might be doing that is causing you kind of struggling in this binge eating lifestyle, struggle, habit. So when you're going on a plan and you kind of cut yourself off from the world, there's something in that that actually is helpful for you. And the reason why I'm sharing with that is that very often in our environment, in our friends, in our family, in society, in events, there's triggers everywhere. And when there's triggers, it makes us want to go self-soothe with food. Now, again, I'm not asking you to go live on your own, cut all the ties with the people around you to really help you in terms of this journey of helping you heal from binge eating. However, I do want you to understand that very often our struggles is not something that is just on us. It's also about our environment and the people that we're around and their beliefs and their comments and their looks that actually can trigger our binge eating moment, right? So let me give you an example. If we look like there's group events, there's family members, there's the lovely thing called the scale that actually can trigger binge eating even before you even had time to wake up for your day. Your work environment, abusive relationships, social media culture, all that can actually be triggers, because the way I want you to see it in terms of society and environmental, it's things on the outside of you that actually cause a trigger, the psychology part in terms of your beliefs and your self-worth and your self-confidence, and going in terms of your subconscious, turning to food as a self-soothing, self-medicating habit in a certain way, a survival habit in a certain way. So I'm going to give you one example. When I'm going to share this actually in the next episode, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit of my story so we can get to know each other a little bit more, because the more you can understand what I've went through, I know we're going to be resonating on so many things. When you look, for example, at how I developed binge eating, I'll dive into more in the next episode, but it came to a point that when somebody told me, don't eat that, I would eat it just out of spite. I wasn't hungry. But one of the ways that it started, that I actually started kind of eating to declare my voice, take my space, be stubborn and telling people, don't tell me what to do, was actually stuffing food down my throat, kind of telling people, don't tell me what to do. So it was one way for me to kind of step into my power, but in the end, I was actually hurting myself. So then I found myself in this pattern that whenever I felt somebody was like looking at me and judging me and kind of telling me how to eat and how much I should not eat, and all these things in terms of the female beauty and the look and the size and the darn number on the scale, it made me turn to food as a rebellion, right? So there's the environmental comments coming in from my family members. And psychology, I was like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to go eat those cookies. I'm going to eat those nuts. I'm going to eat those chips. You're not the boss of me. But then I kind of became in this like perpetual like angry phase of always having to eat as a way for me to speak up. Instead of speaking up, I would just put food down. Then of course I end up like merging into other ways in terms of like there was nutritional deficiencies, I was irregular eating habits, I was very stressed, I was anxious, food was like my best friend. There's like so many other things that happen. But this is how you can see your environment around you actually can trigger you to start using food as self-soothing, self-medicating, and as well to kind of tell people to shut up, let me do what I want to do. And to prove a point, I end up eating something I didn't even feel like eating, but it started creating this kind of pattern of, for me to exude my power and to show what I can do, I'm going to eat what I want, when I want, and nobody can tell me what to do. But in the end, I was rebelling, but I was actually hurting myself, because all I kept seeing, because yes, I was weighing myself at that time, the scale almost creep up to 200 pounds. And then I'm like, what am I doing? And the people were not saying any comments anymore, but they were kind of like still deep inside of me, this anger, the way they would look at me, I would like, oh, they're looking at me because of this, let me eat to show my power. It just became very vicious, very toxic for me. And here is the thing. We're going to have people around us saying all these comments, their beliefs about food, what beauty is, especially in the women industry. And right now we're seeing more and more men struggling with this. The family meetings, family dinners, like all these things. There's so much anxiety-causing events happening and anxiety-causing phrases and comments. Like someone's weight should never be the topic of conversation. Just a heads up. And when you see all that happening, it's normal that you had to find a way to actually calm the stress, this anxiety down, because it was not food. It was going to be maybe alcohol and drugs and gambling and online shopping. There's all these emotions coming in, and then it has to come out or get stuffed in, right? You're going to explode and tell them what you think, or you're going to show them what you think by eating the food in. And same thing if you're scrolling on social media and all you keep seeing is the diets and the weight loss and, melt your body fat in 2 days. Like, honestly, I don't know how you can melt. Doesn't exist. There's no magic pill. There isn't. But the more that we scrolling, we're seeing all these like photoshopped images of people actually having an app to actually make a fake six-pack. And then you're scrolling to that. You're actually letting all these images kind of getting you angry, getting you riled up, making you feel like you're not worthy, making you feel like you're a failure. And then you know what happens is that you end up saying, well, Of course you are. Look at you. Look at your size. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're eating. We start actually talking bad to ourselves, like things that we would not even tell people. And we start intimidating ourselves with our own voice, bullying ourselves, being abusive with ourselves, with all these negative comments. Then what happens when there's all these negative comments coming in? Food is the one thing that is like a rebellion against that voice in a certain way, but also it soothes you at the same time. So when you see, binge eating is not like a 1+1=2 type of equation. Everything is settled, everything makes sense. God, I wish it was that easy, because I would not have struggled all these years, and so many people would not be struggling with this. But the true thing we actually have to understand, we have to see, we have to actually claim it, that there's certain things that I can control, and there are certain things that I cannot control. And when we're going to be diving in terms of the environmental and the social aspects, actually creating a shift of seeing, is this relationship serving me? Is this relationship not serving me? Is this event helping me, or is it not helping me? Is this work helping me and not helping me? So there's all these things coming up. And we're not saying we're going to cut the family ties, we're going to quit the job, but it's good to see, to actually be with an open mind and being kind of like the scientist looking over your life and saying, okay, where are my triggers? Because when you understand where your triggers are, we're actually going to be going through the psychology, the emotional aspect of how can I shift those beliefs? How can I act in a different way, not react, which can be very negative? How can I distance myself from certain moments, certain events, and kind of gauge how much that person is going to kind of take time of my life? Yes, there is a life reevaluation that happens. For me, people knew if you mentioned anything about my weight at one point, I'm walking out the door and I'm not talking to you, because it is none of your business. I'm a bit of a hard head. And it took time. It took time until people, I'm like, why is a number on the scale important? I am beautiful. I am worthy. I am your friend. I am your daughter. I am your sister. Why does my look and my weight impact the way that you are with me? It's having those big questions with people, those big conversations, and people that love you, they're going to be there. And people that see they're not really comfortable with this new you, it's okay. You don't have to break ties, but you're able to stand your ground. And this is what I really want to share more and more in this episode. It's creating that shift on the inside, but as well creating the space of respect around you. Creating an environment around you that is supportive, that is loving, that we're going to have some hard times. But when we're in a supportive, loving environment, it's so much easier to handle those tougher moments than being in an unsupportive, toxic, exhausting environment that any little needle that falls, everything falls. And on a side note as well, and it might be applicable to you or not, but as well, your line of work is a big impact. When I was working in one of the student services with students, I realized a lot of the students that were struggling were working in the food industry. And it's so hard to be around that food industry between the scheduling, but as well being around that food all the time, which makes it very hard to kind of work through the foods. So you have to remember that where we are right here, right now, where you are right here, right now, it's not only about you, it's about everything around you. It's about your home. And your home is not only on the inside, it's who's around you. Who do you surround yourself with? Who do you spend the most energy with throughout the day? And we're going to dive more into that. But I really wanted to share kind of this kind of like introduction series in the beginning to kind of give you a moment of, okay, there's different reasons why you might be struggling with this. And the thing is, we don't have to like, it's not like, oh my God, there's so much. The thing is, once you have those little aha moments, even after listening to this podcast episode or even watching this YouTube video, it's going to make you change the way that you see things. Sometimes you don't have to do anything. You just have to bring awareness to the situation. So, little homework. You can keep up with the journal, again, the emotional journal. Notice, when are the moments that you're more inclined to wanting to eat? Want to emotionally eat, compulsive eat, binge eat? What are those moments? Is there a pattern? Is there a person? Is it at work? Is it after work? Is it on the weekend? Write it all out. What are the comments you're getting? And we're not here to change the people around us, because guess what? We cannot change people that don't want to be changed. Like we say, we cannot save people that don't want to be saved. But by listening to these episodes, we're actually going to be looking at what are the different ways that I can change the way that I respond or act to a situation. Instead of reacting in a negativity, in an aggressive way, how can I actually see it from a different way? How can I change the way that I see those comments? How can I respond to those comments? And this is what the beauty of, and I know it's very hard sometimes to hear, the beauty of doing this work is that you end up actually claiming your power back, your confidence back, your self-worth back, everything back, by standing your ground and understanding this is helping me and this is not helping me. And I have a choice. Which choice do I want to take? So I hope this one kind of like opened up a lot of, different kind of bubbles of, these are interesting things that are coming up. And again, if you didn't listen to the episodes before, make sure you do, because you're going to be understanding that, again, it's not like following a plan and that's it. And if I cut the sugar, I'm out of the binge eating. No. My aim is for you to be able to have that cereal, have that Nutella, have those chips, because I have all those foods at home and binge eating is not even there anymore. No more binge eating. Not because I'm restricting. It's just, it feels like it's another person that lived through a hard time and I took the time to heal her. So on that note, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, do catch the next episodes, because I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more about my story so you can get to know me a little bit more. And as well, we're going to dive into the nutritional aspects to really give you proven scientific, nutritional, research-based ways to help you create that change. And as well, whatever I'm sharing here is things that I personally did and that my clients have done. And if it worked for me, and if it worked for almost 1,000 people the past 20 years, there's always something you can take away from any of the episodes here. So on that note, I wish you a beautiful and a balanced day. Dina Merhbi here, and I'll catch you in the next episode.